Not today, not today, not today, not tomorrow. Get out my way, please. I'm trying to get paid. Not today, not today.
Welcome in. We are in week 4 of the NFL. We are coming off a hot weekend. Steve, how are you feeling?
Love it. 3-1. You love to see the model do its thing, and boy, oh boy, did it shine.
Yes, it really did. And it was kind of sweat-free, but we'll get into it. Before we jump into the matchup maps, if you could please like and subscribe, give us some comments, give us some love. It helps our channel grow tremendously, and we do it all for y'all. So if you could do that for us, we would be gratefully indebted to you. So Steve, without further ado, let's hop in to the matchup map. We're getting a lot of data as the kind of weeks start to roll in. We're already going in to week 4, and man, I mean, I can't say, you know, this NFL season has had some trials and tribulations, but overall it's kind of shaping up a little bit to like what we thought at the beginning of the season. And I say all that except with maybe one team for you, and that's the Chicago Bears. So we can start there. Chicago, obviously a little bit of turmoil, didn't have the greatest start here. They go into Kansas City, and unfortunately this was kind of a get-right game for Kansas City.
Yeah, 100%. And listen, no one, including myself being the biggest Bears fan, expected Chicago to win this game. What you did expect, though, was to see a competitive offense go out there, possibly an unleashed Justin Fields, do a little bit more running, a little more design QB runs, whatever you want to have it to get them going. And you saw, you know, a positive step further, positive step forward. What you saw, though, was a team that unequivocally is just not prepared to take the field. And boy, oh boy, we talked about maybe the Colts or the Cardinals being the worst team in the league, maybe going winless. I can't fathom a way Chicago is going to get to 6 wins. I don't know how they're going to get to 2. If I'm being straightforward, I think what you're going to see here is a potential full-blown tank. It's already talk about, you know, firing the coaches. There's already talk about putting in Tyson Bagent, who's our kind of a wonder boy backup quarterback, who was third string going into the season. It's a complete dumpster fire. So, you know, bear down, Chicago Bears.
Yeah, I mean, the good news here is Taylor Swift got to see your poor performance. So, hey, at least there's that. Yeah, interesting. I mean, I know the futures model, and I know you weren't psyched about this, had the under. But yeah, this looks to be comfortably under. They look dysfunctional. I don't. Yeah.
No, I'm not sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. I don't say you know how bad this game was. The fact that no one's talking about, you know, the Chiefs' offense or everything's clicking, or even how bad the Bears were. The talk of this game was, 1, Taylor Swift was there, and 2, the philosophical debate of, did T Swift put Travis Kelce on the map? Like, you know, the whole running joke. Like that's how bad Chicago is as an organization. You can't even talk football at their own game.
Hey, I mean, if the Bears, that was such a bad performance from the Bears. I think Taylor Swift did you a favor by making that the conversation, because man, oh man, it was embarrassing. I mean, they had no offensive efficiency, and defensively they were atrocious. And then they didn't get anything going until they decided to sit people defensively for Kansas City. So a lot of questions there. All right, on the flip side of the matchup map, we have the Miami Dolphins, one of our darlings for preseason Super Bowl winners. We got tickets for Super Bowl. We got tickets for AFC North. We are loving the Dolphins, and we were loving them preseason. So really cool to see this team click. And I know you've said it many times, when Tua is healthy, we have always said this is a quarterback that is highly efficient and highly accurate. We're not surprised by what we're seeing, but I have to say I'm surprised by a 70-point win. You know, break this down for me. I was watching this on the Red Zone, and I'm like watching the games that we bet on, and it's like, what? Like 35, and you're like, okay, it's got to be almost over. And then you're like, whoa, what's going on over there?
No, 100%. And here's the wild part. Like, for everything that we talked about, how good Miami's offense is, how explosive and consistently productive they were, it's not like Denver's defense was trash. Like, you look at here right here at the matchup map, Denver is now regressed back to an average defense after that shellacking. Like, Denver was a good defense going into this matchup. And so obviously they have a bunch of their own issues going on there. what's happening. Sean Payton clearly isn't the answer. Russ clearly isn't the answer, and the defense is getting tired. But man, give credit where credit is due. It was men amongst boys out there, and that's what I expect to see from Miami pretty much throughout the entire year. And I will say one quick bonus thing. I don't think we're going to talk about this during this filming, because why should we? But boy, oh boy, do the NFL gods love us, because we get the best matchup next week of all time. Bears versus Broncos. The two teams who are absolutely the worst in the NFL. And I'll be the first to say this is not my idea. I saw this on Instagram, but I want to promote this wherever I can. The loser of the Bears Broncos should be relegated to the XFL.
Oh, okay. And then just bump up Georgia or Alabama. Yeah. No, I mean, that's basically where most of the NFL is coming from anyways. That's interesting. Now, actually, I think it is worth a little bit of time to talk about this, because I'm not trying to pour it on here. This is how bad the Bears' performance was and has been over the season. The market was lining up at that open at -3 to be pouring money on to the Broncos here. They are saying, give me my money. I want Broncos -3. That's now moved to 4 if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, that's really interesting. But yeah, I agree. This is kind of the war of the bottom feeders, no doubt about it. One team that we are high on, but has been just kind of really, really bitten by the injury bug, is the Ravens. Obviously, they fumbled that game against the Colts, and they end up losing. Now, that was really a true game of inches, because if Gardner Minshew doesn't step out and take that safety, he basically got his head ripped off, and he would have fumbled, and it would have been a touchdown. And there's no way that team, or that the Colts even, are able to come back at all. So, I mean, really kind of got lucky in a weird way by getting that safety. And then obviously Matt Gay going 5 for 5 on 50-yard field goals. I mean, when you're talking about variance and luck, that is a game that they truly got unlucky. But I still think, obviously, the injuries for the Ravens are huge. And you saw it from a turnover standpoint. This team was turning the ball over multiple times. They look sloppy. If this team is going to be a contender, they got to get better. And quite frankly, I think they got to get healthy. Any like residual thoughts or concerns for the Ravens?
No, but you said it perfectly. This team's got to get healthy. We know from top to bottom who they are at their peak. It's going to be a force to be reckoned with. But right now, it's not a good look. But there's no excuses, right? Every NFL team has injuries. Some definitely worse than others. But the Ravens don't have any shot at making a run at AFC North. They've got to get healthy. They've got to get healthy quick, because the Colts aren't that good. They're not the worst team in the league, but they're not that good. They should be beating the Ravens.
Yeah, and they saw a little bit of kicking luck and turnover luck.
Yeah.
Like, the Colts got lucky, no doubt about that. But I still think that game was way too close. I mean, I don't know if you got a chance to watch it, but from the first drive on, it looked like the Ravens were going to win, like all of their peers that had similar spreads, and they were going to win by 30. But they then turned the ball over on that second drive, and it just was a sloppy game that never got going. Really interesting. And I piggyback that this team is now playing the Browns, which Deshaun Watson, question mark. But this defense, nothing but exclamation marks there. They are just dominant and balling out, very scary. And you can really envision, if Deshaun can get his shit together in any capacity, that team may be damn good.
Yeah, and you were concerned if you're watching that game when Nick Chubb had that horrific injury, which sounds like it's I'm gonna say just an ACL, maybe a little MCL involvement, so he should be back playing football at some point. But if you watch that game, I mean, when Chubb went out, that offense just stopped, and you were concerned of like, okay, Deshaun can't get it together, Chubb's not there, what are they gonna do? But man, that defense really held them together going into into last week. And then we saw Jerome Ford kind of ball out. Obviously, they signed Kareem Hunt. So all the pieces are there. And you're absolutely right, man. If Deshaun Watson can just do what he's paid $230 million to do, the Browns are going to be a scary team to reckon with. Now, I do have a question for you, kind of switching gears, unless you have something about the Browns you want to end on.
Only just, I mean, Deshaun Watson literally threw a backwards pass. Like, he literally threw a pass in the opposite direction of his end zone. Man, like, is this one of the biggest bamboozles of all time? I don't know. And that's hyperbolic. And obviously we've seen him be good. So it is like 100 question marks for me. And if they can get any efficiency going on offense, that team is just going to roll. So more so just that 9.5. And we said this last week, it's going to be a bumpy ride. It's not going to feel comfortable. I mean, coming off of a win, I still am like, this is going to be, they have all the talent in the world to get there. They have the pieces to get there, but a lot of stuff has to come together. And we'll see what ends up happening.
Yeah, no, 100%. Now, I do have a question for you because
Okay.
this is one I kind of wrestle with. In your mind, what was the bigger upset in your mind? Cardinals over Cowboys or Jaguars over Texans? And are you really concerned about either team? So I'll say just real quick, the Cardinals over the Cowboys, I think on paper may be the bigger upset in my mind, just because how good the Cowboys are and what the expectations of the Cardinals were going into this year. And I will say real quick, Cowboys had a chance to win that game, and we talked about Dak Prescott and how he's in the quadrant of elite this year, where normally he's a very volatile quarterback. And what happened when the Cowboys for the first time were down and they had to make a job to win the game? Dak threw an interception. Dak, threw a key interception and lost the game for them. So that was the bigger one to me. But on the flip side, I'm a little concerned because the Jaguars losing to the Texans, anyone can beat anyone on any given day. But you look at that matchup map offensively, Jaguars, that leaves a lot to be desired. So I don't know. I'm curious from your standpoint, Seth.
Yeah, actually, I don't disagree with anything you said, but my answer to the question is, who am I concerned about the most? The Jags, because that Houston team was down 4 safeties. In fact, we were talking about, is there a huge angle here from an injury standpoint for us to be maybe betting the Jags at a lower number? And FYI, I did, and I got my ass kicked. And I mean, that, like you just said, if that piece of information wasn't known and it was just a normal matchup and they just, won, and like you said, any given Sunday, but we know this is an injured Houston team at offensive line as well. So this is a team that was supposed to be in at least the quadrant of good defense. Well, they had issues at offensive line for Houston. So why weren't they able to get pressure? They had a rookie week 3 just torch them all over the place. And this is supposed to be a team, we called it out with the pass funnel. So, hey, shout out for anybody that used that advice and bet some of these props. But this is supposed to be a team that is not only good on defense, but one of the elite offenses. And that's who they were training to be last year. So what's going on there? What is the big difference? And this is also after the addition of Ridley in the offseason, who was touted to be this huge addition. And it looked like week 1 he was going to be. So what's going on there? Because I don't really think it's Houston's better than we think. Maybe I'll be proven wrong here in the next couple of weeks. So what exactly, is going on there? And this comes to mind right now. Did we get something very crucially wrong, or a better way to say this? Did we not make a really crucial connection? We've been banging the drum as loud as anybody. Minnesota saw insane positive variance in their direction last year. They did. They're going to see regression last year. And what do you know? They're 0-3. But should we have made that same case for the Jags? This is a team that went didn't they go 6 or 7-0 in the last couple of weeks? They pulled so many rabbits out of the hat in overtime against the Cowboys. They were literally down 20 something points in the playoffs. They came back and won that game. Did we miss a really, really almost the exact same thing? We saw a team, that team was the Jags, saw an insane amount of positive variance when we did. And then now we are seeing the ramifications of negative variance when everything just doesn't go your way. Are we actually seeing that for that team? And we didn't actually catch that. That's something that I just kind of came to my mind right now. And maybe that's what's going on there. Maybe we've kind of forgot to, double check here that that team kind of got lucky as well.
I don't know how you argue with anything you just said. I mean, that's a damn good observation. And I mean, time will tell, but yeah.
It's intense. Obviously, we can hit a little bit on New Orleans. That injury kind of sucks. You hate to see kind of any of these guys go down. It overall makes the league better, I think, when we have our kind of normal 32 starters. We'll say 36. There's 36 starters in the NFL. I think that was a big injury. And then Jameis, quite frankly, led them to the game-winning drive, but they just missed the kick. So interesting to see there. That New Orleans team isn't as dominant. Tampa Bay kind of comes back to earth. Now the model called that, Eagles, and this is the biggest thing I'm going to be thumping for the next couple of weeks, and we'll get into this a little bit later, but obviously New England hasn't showed us anything yet offensively as far as like taking really big leaps forward, but they have held these really, really good offenses to very few points. And I'm putting the Eagles in that category, and I'm putting the Dolphins in that category. Is this a really, really scary New England defense? And I think we're going to look back and be like, damn, they were really good. They only held those teams to a few points. So we'll see what Dallas ends up doing this week. But, I think that was a case that we saw. Like, the Eagles offense is actually really good. They just have gone up against a good defense in New England that was a little bit filtering their numbers. And I guess the last thing for me is LA. LA wasn't a team we were high on. It wasn't a team we were low on. And this has been just like, yeah, remember, like, Stafford's pretty good. And when you don't have him or his spine is broken, yeah, they struggle. This is without Cooper Kupp. So what does this team look like in the coming weeks? Now, I'm not calling for them to win the Super Bowl, but this is going to be a team that's going to be in that upper echelon 15 teams, maybe even top 10, and they're going to cause a lot of headaches. And I won't be surprised if in the coming weeks our model picks them to be covering a lot of games, because this is a team that's sneaky good is not necessarily the right word, but maybe it is. Maybe they're sneaky good. We've already bet them once, and spoiler alert, we're about to bet them the second time. Anything there? Any other teams that we didn't talk about, Steve, that you have questions about or are really excited about?
No, I mean, I think the only thing I'll just state the obvious real quick. I'm really excited to see what's going to happen in the future with the opportunity to bet against the Jets and how long, the Jets really convince. I mean, Robert Saleh already came out and said, hey, Zach Wilson is our unquestioned quarterback, our unquestioned starting quarterback. So I don't know how you feel good about that if you're in New York. And then, going through, I agree with everything you said about LA. I'm really excited to see what they do. But Atlanta had their loss. They're 2-1. We have the over there.
Yeah.
But with Carr going down here and Tampa Bay coming back down to earth, that NFC South is wide open. I'm really interested to see what happens in that division. So that's all I got.
Desmond Ridder did not look good. They made him throw.
No, he did not.
And he could not. And I was like, oh, gosh. And then I think Trevor Siemian was signed, if I'm not mistaken, by the New York Jets. They went ahead and signed Trevor Siemian. I don't know, a little bit quarterback controversy. Okay. Yeah, that's happened in the last couple of days. So I don't know. Maybe they, I don't know. It's hard to make a case that Zach Wilson's worse than Trevor Siemian, but hey, you never know. All right. That's the matchup map. Obviously, we do have the offensive and defensive pass efficiency stuff. That's all on our website. I don't think there's too much to get into today. I think we might as well take a step to take a quick second here talking about the pass funnels, right? Because it is a good betting angle. It is a way to make money. The Jags moved a little bit higher, right? So I would still put them in that consideration for a pass funnel, but the Eagles are properly in the pass funnel right now. You cannot run the ball against them. Good luck. They're going against the Commanders this weekend. So potentially, for me, this is a good place to start. Okay, let's take the wide receivers, Sam Howell, and let's look at yardage. Let's look at, utilization. Where's the best angle there? And who has, the highest probability to hit over their yards, I think is a really good place to start. And you'd be surprised how accurate these pass funnels kind of are as far as depicting gameplay. So, keep an eye out there. All right. I do want to spend a couple of minutes on this because we haven't had a chance to check in. Looking at quarterback landscape on EPA and volatility, who is who, where are they at? We have some familiar faces. One thing I got to put my hand up, and I know you were the first person to ever admit you were wrong just only an hour ago, Steve, but I'm going to be the second person to admit I'm wrong. Geno Smith's balling, okay? Geno Smith's balling. He's really, really, really consistent. And I mean, I've been on record over and over and over saying this guy had a Cinderella year and he's about to turn back into a pumpkin. The only pumpkin is on my face because he's balling this year. He's balling.
Yeah. Who knew? I mean, he's still not riding back. yeah. Because we're all riding. He's still not riding back. I mean, this is absolutely insane. I was right there on that boat with you. A little peek behind the curtains here. When we first started this 2 years ago, It was the Seahawks Broncos was the first game on our card, and it
Yeah.
was right when the Russell Wilson trade happened, and
Yep.
Geno got the nod for to be a starting quarterback. And we were having this debate back and forth because there were some things about the model technicalities about, is this a play for us or not, which it did call the Seahawks. And, for me, I was like, Geno couldn't beat my high school football team, let alone an NFL team. And I don't think I've ever been more wrong about anything in my life. So shout out Geno.
Yeah, shout out Geno. And as it comes into picture, and we don't want to crown him yet, but like if you really think about it, he was never really in a great position. Like he didn't have the wide receivers he has now. He wasn't really he was on the Jets, which just historically have kind of fumbled quarterbacks. No pun intended. So yeah, good for Geno. Honestly, I hope he keeps proving me wrong. Good for him. It's always good to have a reliable quarterback that you can find EV on and bet. So let's hope he keeps him up. Some of the guys I want to hit on here: Desmond Ridder, still in the quadrant of woe. He is consistent, but consistently bad, not where you want to be. No surprise. Bryce Young is there. Gardner Minshew is there. But who is there? Joe Burrow. And this is including week 3's game. Now I know and due respect, he went, gritty it up, got that win. I think that's really important. Obviously, avoiding that 0-3 start really is very important analytically to your career and your probable outcomes. So good for him. They did get the win. But to say I'm concerned, maybe a little bit too rough, but this seems to be a little bit different than past years. It doesn't look like they're slow. There's the starting slow. It doesn't look like they're able to be quite as efficient. And I don't know that they can just go flip the switch. Now, Joe Burrow has proved pretty much everybody wrong at every step. So we'll see here, but I am pretty concerned here. The only other quarterback, Deshaun Watson, below average EPA. That's not surprising, but highly volatile. Also not surprising. Can he come back to earth? Because if he doesn't, I think this Browns team, they're going to go how Deshaun goes. That defense is just too good. If we saw 2 weeks ago, he lost the game for them. Everything else went right, and he lost the game. All right, Steve, what quarterbacks on here, catch your eye? Who's tickling your fancy, and who's just rubbing you the wrong way?
Yeah, so first and foremost, Tua Tagovailoa. I mean, dear God, again in its own stratosphere. Now, a little more volatile than you want, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I mean, that offense is just there's so much room for error. That's the crazy part. You know what I mean? So people I want to talk about real quick. Brock Purdy. If you follow us since last year, we've done these volatility charts, and Brock Purdy was cemented in that bottom right hand corner where you want to be highly efficient and not volatile, so consistently good. And we always said, yes, this is great because he was right next to Patrick Mahomes. But if you look on the right hand side, you see the size of the circle matters. The size of the circle indicates how many plays that were ran. And so we always said it was a small sample size. And as you get through the season, he's still pretty productive, but he's a little more volatile. I want to keep an eye on that. Dak Prescott, I think this is an overplay. I think he's going to end up being a lot more volatile as the year goes on. Remember, the first 2 games he played with a humongous lead. He didn't have to do anything the first 2 games, and you saw him be very efficient and very consistent. Soon as Cardinals got that lead, now you saw the good old-fashioned Dak, good old throw the ball away Prescott. And I think this is going to be a very big concern if I'm a Cowboys fan and seeing how far can Dak take this team, i.e. can they win a Super Bowl? And I still have my doubts, and I felt a little vindicated this last Sunday. And then my last thing was Trevor Lawrence. Man, we just talked about the Jaguars and all that positive variance last year. Did we overlook this? Did we miss this? But by God, Lawrence is not looking good. He's not productive, and he's inconsistent. That's just that's really not where you want to be. So I'm looking for him to turn around, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and one thing I didn't see until right now is Baker Mayfield cemented here in the quadrant of elite for now.
Yeah.
And I have to say, they went up against a more elite Eagles team, and they were dominate. But I mean, Baker didn't play all that bad, quite frankly. The Eagles won that game more than like Tampa Bay. Just like what I mean, Mike Evans was dropping balls. I mean, it was a whole kind of team effort loss kind of thing. But I can't say I'm that surprised when you put a quarter that's kind of been average over his career into a team with really good wide receivers. Like that's not that surprising. So something I really keep an eye out. How do they?
I will say,
but really, go.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, there's a number of keeping an eye out. At 3 weeks in, things can change fast in one game, and I think you're right. Like Dak's one to keep an eye out. Can we see Tua get into the quadrant of elite? Because the answer is yes. I mean, oh my gosh, that team could be unstoppable. And then Kenny Pickett is now sitting in a very different quadrant than we saw him last year. He's literally polar opposite. Is that a Matt Canada thing? Is that a Kenny thing? I think there's too few data right now to know the cause and effect there. But those are the ones that I'm looking at. And then is Daniel Jones just dog shit and they made a huge mistake? I don't know. I mean, but I love the quarterback efficiency stuff because it really is giving us an idea of how these teams are playing, right? For the most part, if the quarterback's efficient, the team is going to be efficient, right? Just by definition. But if teams are efficient, usually they're winning, right? And Justin Herbert is a really interesting one. You can see how well he's playing, but yet they have struggled to actually close those games out. So I'm happy to see they got a win there because I want to see a successful Justin Herbert.
Yeah, I mean that one absolutely baffled me. What was going on with the Chargers? I mean they were doing the things that they should be doing, and they just can't get it together. Whether it's from execution, questionable play calling, but yeah, Herbert's been balling. The last one I wanted to make real quick was I want to give a little bit of a shout out to CJ Stroud, right? So you look at the rookie quarterback class being Stroud, Richardson, Bryce Young, right? Like he a little more to be desired on the volatility side, but he's damn close to being that quadrant of elite where you want to be. But he's doing it with what though? He's doing it with a merry-go-round offensive line, right? Like he's doing it with what were we saying? Four DBs out in the last game. Like he's doing this against all odds, and I gotta say I'm pretty impressed.
Yeah, and I think on a lot of the sharp bettors that or syndicates that we follow and have a pretty good voice that is worth listening to, they're talking about CJ Stroud MVP tickets. And we talked a little bit about this in our season preview. Like when it comes to rookie quarterbacks, the tails are the hardest thing to quantify, meaning they can be super duper bad, but they can be way better than you think because you have no data. And I don't know that CJ Stroud wins MVP or offensive rookie of the year or anything like that, but man, that ticket probably, if you have one, is looking pretty nice right about now because he looked damn good in that game. And I mean, that was kind of a dominant win against a team that was an 8-point favorite. So, shout out to CJ Stroud. I agree. All right, Steve, we're moving on. Any other takes in the quarterback landscape?
No, let's do it.
All right. This is always a nice part where we get to talk about what we bet last week and how it went. We went 3-1. Man, it feels good. The model is kind of doing its thing. It's not too high, not too low, but we're sitting 9-6 through 3 weeks. That's profit. We'd like to see it. And man, other than this Ravens game, it was nice to be on the Bills and Eagles. I mean, especially the Bills game. I mean, talk about no sweat. I mean, literally was no sweat. I don't take these for granted. Let me tell you, I used to, not anymore using a model. Like these are few and far between. When you have EV, you take it, but man, like that was a dominant win by the Bills.
100%. Like I said, I was actually out traveling. I was at a wedding this weekend, and I was traveling back home on Sunday. So I was trying to catch, the scores of the game. I couldn't stream all the games on the flight. And so I remember checking this game at kickoff, and that's when it was a sweat, when it was 0-0 for the first couple of minutes. And then after that, I mean, it was just absolutely comfort, smooth sailing. I will say I feel so good about the Steelers game. And we sat here and we talked about this, right? Two things you made really good points to this. One, this model output was really a factor of how bad the Raiders defense was. You look at the matchup maps and you saw Steelers were dead last week through week 3 of the offensive EPA, right? And it looked like a terrible thing on paper, but lo and behold, that offense woke up. And two, I love this because this is where the line moved against us. The line moved against us on this pretty significantly.
It ended up getting to 3. It ended up getting to 3.
Yeah, right. And then what happened? I mean, Steelers pretty comfortably.
I double dipped. I went and I bit off the 3 because at the 3, even though the market's telling me I'm wrong, it's also now changing the probability, right? Now we're saying this is a one possession game to cover. I mean, to say it's scary, yes. It'll be really interesting to track, and obviously we will CLV later in the season. And I'm still we'll talk about the model plays this week, but like, like understanding why the market is doing what they're doing. And I think one of the big things is injury. I think that was one of the bigger moves early in the week. There was some defensive players out for Steelers that was released. I think that was the initial move. And then the kind of momentum, I think, ended up just getting it there. But yeah, I don't know. This is interesting. And then, for all those counting right, any EV here went, I think there were 8 plays total. They went 6-2. So if you were tailing all the EV plays, you made some pretty big bank this week. Now, I will exercise extreme caution for anybody that hasn't used the model and is just seeing this now. Why do you see 3 check marks and 1 X when all, there's 3 other wins we could be taking credit for? One, because we didn't bet them, but more importantly, over the long haul here, if you are taking games with 0.4% EV, you are going to see variance. And as many times as you're going to feel like a genius by taking the Cardinals, you're going to get burned. And you need to bet a huge, huge sample size in order to actually get that 0.4%. Now, I'm not saying don't, use the model however you want to use the model, but I just want to caution people. We aren't going to be those people like, yeah, look at the model. It's so great. The things we're doing are rooted in analytics, and there's a method, not even to the madness. There's just a method. And there's a reason we do 4% or better. Those edges are big enough that we actually don't need to get, bet 1,000 games in order to realize an edge, right? Does it mean we'll win? No. Can we guarantee we'll win? No. But in a large sample size, we should come out ahead. So just want to kind of point that out for anybody out there trying to get some bright ideas like, oh, just take all the EV bets in the model. Anything else from week 3, Steve? Did you bet anything else? I did take the parlay of 2.5 Kansas City and Jags. Obviously, part of that was really genius. The other part was really dumb. Ended up losing that, and I did double dip on the Steelers. Those are my only extra plays outside of these.
The only thing I took on top of this was I live bet the Cardinals when they were up, I think like 7-0 for, I want to say like plus 425 or something like that. It was pretty early
money line.
Yeah. Oh yeah, money line. Oh yeah.
Money man's
little sprinkle, nothing crazy.
Hey, but when it rains, it pours.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. All right. Well, that was week 3. We are now headed into week 4, and man, this is an interesting week. We ran the model, obviously, Monday. We had one bet that we were able to get, which was the Seahawks. Interestingly enough, the model immediately moved against us again. Now, we'll talk about why. And then after Monday night games, we obviously rerun the numbers to get the Eagles, Rams, and all the other teams that played Monday night. And lo and behold, it spit out Eagles and Rams. So there are 3 official plays in this. That's Eagles. I was able to get to -8, -105, I believe. Seahawks -1, Rams. We were able to get +1.5, -105. And then this is an interesting play, and use this as in your own discretion. Cowboys -6.5. There's a little bit of a war going on. There are some expensive 6.5s out there. There's a handful of books, both Circa and Pinnacle at this time of recording are still at 7. But Bookmaker has a 6.5 up, and Bookmaker is also a market maker. So there's a couple books that are offering a 6.5 -120. At the 6.5, if you can get it, it shows this as a very, very positive EV play, way greater than 4%. I have went ahead and I was able to grab a 6.5 earlier in the week. They're a little bit more available now. But that's kind of I would say a little bit of an optional play. All right, Steve, how are you feeling about the picks this week? Anything you love it, you hate it, you make you feel gross, make you feel smart? How you feeling?
No, I love these picks. I love the Rams going to the Colts. Everything we talked about went right for Indy, and obviously the Rams coming off that backdoor push, depending on when you got that bet. Lost against the Bengals, but I think the Rams are definitely have the higher ceiling here. The one thing I want to ask you though, because you kind of hinted to this, the Seahawks Giants game and why that move against us. You want to just hop into that right now?
Yeah, let's do it. So injury Seahawks, and really it's non-reported yet. So basically DK questionable, a number of offensive line questionable, some defensive guys questionable. Now they did confirm they're getting a couple of defensive guys that were out last week. Will be back this week, but there is a shit ton of question marks there as far as injuries. Now, obviously, if you're watching this today, it makes sense to if you haven't already bet it, then just play as the injury plays. Of course, if the injuries are in our favor, the market's going to more than likely agree with us, and it's going to come down. Now, it may not get all the way back to -1, but it's going to come down. Now, this is still sitting at +1, 1.5, from my understanding. We haven't seen it creep up to 2 or 3. I would be really, really surprised if it does. I don't know that DK being out for this game is enough to move it there. I could be wrong, though. And then Rams is the same idea. It looks like the market is sitting on bated breath, waiting to see if it's going to be Anthony Richardson or Gardner Minshew. We try to run some preliminary numbers, and it's a little bit more difficult than you'd think to be able to do. But long story short, I felt comfortable laying the +1.5 at -105 when we ran the numbers initially. Obviously, what we're hoping to see is Anthony Richardson is going to start and is cleared concussion protocol. He did practice today, so that's a good sign. But that'll be the real signal. And then obviously, as far as Eagles, they rolled week 3. We're looking for them to roll week 4 here. I don't know. I don't want to get overzealous. I mean, it's an easy. You can understand why the model likes it. Eagles are a good team. They were a good team last year. Washington, not so much. And then they gave up a lot of yards and EPA to a really good Bills team. But, the Eagles are going to be good. And if they can be as good as they were in the air, I think that could be, a bloodbath again. But I know better than that. This is a divisional game. It's probably going to be tough. But when you can get, the 8's a little uncomfortable, but when you look at the -10, that makes a lot of sense to me. The Eagles are a 10-point better than the Washington Commanders, especially with a variable Sam Howell playing. And, the way that they got after that offensive line in Tampa Bay, if they do that to a rookie and Sam Howell, you can see how that game could get out of hand, or at least, him throw a couple interceptions. So I'm pretty here. The one grossest to me is the Cowboys at 6.5. It feels so uncomfortable.
Sure.
I made that point earlier about New England's defense. I believe that. I believe that New England's defense is really good, and we kind of are evolving into a little bit of a Dak hating, operation here. And I'm putting myself in there, and so I feel a little exposed because I'm basically betting on Dak. I'm betting on Dak to go and be able to move the ball against a really good defense. That feels uncomfortable.
Yeah, 100% agreed. And you talk about that. That does make you feel a little gross, to use your words there. In the model we trust, and we have that kind of EV though. I'm gonna lay it too. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm gonna lay that tonight. But going back to the Eagles real quick. I do, hearing you talk, I actually do love this bet a lot more. I already liked it. But you look at Washington's EPA splits offensively on run and pass, and we talked about the Eagles being one of those pass funnel teams, and then you look at Washington's pass ability on the offensive side of the ball. And so obviously
they're not able to pass the ball. Yeah.
Yeah. Screen slants are going to be open there to kind of get a little bit of a run alteration, but yeah, that has bloodbath potentially written all over it. Now, if you follow us, we really don't like double-digit spreads. This is the NFL. These are all professional athletes. But with that being said, yeah, I'm definitely with you on that one, Seth. I'm loving that Eagles bet.
Yeah, and it's really that 8, right? Like, you need to understand, like, that's why when you're doing a bottom-up approach, like why it's, in my opinion, so much better than a top-down is because when you're betting 8, well, to be honest, you're betting 10. Like, that's the most probable thing that's going to happen, right? And when you see if that's true, and in our case, our model's putting the number at 10, like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Yes, it's a 2 possessions, but it's a reasonable 2 possessions. Some of these spreads can get out of hand, 15 points. Okay, now you're talking about 3 possession territory, which is just a really uncommon, they're a standard deviation outside of the normal kind of outcome in a NFL game. So you need to make sure you're betting on a above standard deviation team, right? To get those things. I don't know that, to me, this makes sense. This line doesn't make sense. And Yeah, it's a little awkward at 8, but I do believe we're going to see a pretty similar game. And I think the Eagles need this momentum because they did start slow. There are question marks there, but I'm really excited to see that defensive line. They can get going like they did in Tampa Bay. Man, they look good.
Yeah.
I can't remember the last time we bet on Geno. Can you?
No.
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 Like I think this may be my first.
Yeah.
So don't let me down, Geno.
Yeah. But for once, right back, please.
Or no, continue to not write back. Like prove,
no. We're right.
You keep proving to me that I'm dumb, and that will be fine. If you keep, I think you're bad. So you just keep proving. You keep proving that I don't know what the hell I'm talking about.
Gino, I'm writing love letters. Please write back.
There you go. I like it. Yeah. Okay. So technically 3 plays here, and if you decide to play the Cowboys, play it at 6.5 only. I believe you can get that still. I was looking at the market earlier. Like it's available at like one book basically. But I think it's still up there. So use caution. And then the big thing for me is if we see this close at 6.5, it's pretty much doomsday, I think, in my mind. And we're probably going to realize that, yeah, Dak is screwed. If it still holds at the 7, I think it's going to be a really good bet. I know it feels gross, but you're just getting so much EV. Like it's a good play. It's a smart bet. Even if it loses, it's a smart bet.
And then can we make a quick point about that? To your point.
Yep.
So all points being bought aren't equal, right? And so we're talking about getting the 6.5 at -120, not being price gouged or getting the 6.5 at 125, 130 or so. That's not the same thing. So I just want to make that point real quick.
Yeah, I mean that leap from 7 to 6.5. I mean, you convert like if it's like 8%, you convert from like a push, like 8% of the probability is a push at 7. You convert all of that 8% to a win. So you jump up huge in EV. It's the same thing when you're betting a team that's favored to win by 3.5 and you're able to get a 2.5. So, going from -110 to -120 can still be very expected value depending on what you make the true number, right? And that's why when you have a model and you have a bottom-up approach and you're able to actually quantify what the true number is, well, you're able to kind of analyze these little edges. Because they do happen. If you follow us in college, we talk about this all the time. You're able to find a point here, a point there, and that actually makes it more advantageous and more expected value for you, and you should bet it in those cases. So no different here. Anything that's not the model that you're betting, Steve, or you're super psyched to bet?
No, I mean, honestly, this one, I feel pretty comfortable getting my 4 in. Like I said, I'm going to be out of the country, so I'm not going to have a real chance to even watch a lot of this stuff. So I'm just kind of going through. But when I get back, though, I'm not going to lie. I get back on Sunday, so I will be watching closely that Giants Seahawks line because I do want to double dip there if the opportunity presents itself, and the injury report doesn't really add more to what we're kind of concerned about.
Yeah.
What about you?
Injury there? Man, I probably not. There's nothing that jumps out at me as a real angle. The Packers are an interesting team. If you really look at their EPA per play, really efficient, but their success rate's really low. So this is like a kind of a boomer bust offense to me. I'm a little bit, I don't know, on the fence about them. I mean, we have our futures pick, so I'm still looking there. Yeah, I'm just kind of in data collection mode as far as like my mental brain, trying to understand what teams are good, what teams are bad. Really interested actually what happens in that Bears Broncos. I'm just really curious what the market is seeing because like as I think our model puts the number at 3 and it opened at 3. Is that correct? Where it's like oh no, do we put it at 6?
6. Yep.
6 and 3. So the market actually agrees with our models. Shout out to our model, but it just doesn't meet our expected value. And thank God it doesn't, because that is a game I would absolutely hate to bet. I don't know. The Bills look pretty good, but I think Miami's really good. I think that number is exactly right at 2.5. It's going back and forth between 2.5 and 3. If I was a really, really crazy person, I would go find a 2.5 -110 for Bills, and then I'd go buy a plus 3.5 for the Miami Dolphins and parlay those together and see what kind of just because I mean I think that number ends at 3 so many times. Like
Sure,
the Bills are a good team and Miami's are a good team. And we saw like when in an AFC matchup with Miami and New England, this game didn't get out of hand, and I don't think we should expect it to on either side of the ball. So I think it'll just be a really good game overall. But I think that number is probably exactly 3 so many times that game is played. That's the right number. So no, I think overall a kind of a light week, still just data collection, and if anything comes up, there's potential to play the Ravens here at 3. Once it gets to 3, the big concern there is it would only get to 3 because of injuries. And then, that's not really all that attractive to go be betting the 3, even because, a bunch of guys are out. So we'll see. But that's kind of where my head is at. All right. I think if there are no other bets, that will be kind of that will be it for this week. So you said no other bets this year, right, Steve?
No, that's it.
I will say you're going to Canada. Canada is actually very liberal with betting. It's legal there. So, I mean, you got to, when I was there for a wedding, I had a little bit of a degenerate moment. I looked into a couple apps. The only reason I didn't sign up, you have to have a Canadian address. So, think ahead. If you know anybody that lives there, you can solve
maybe
that
a
problem.
hotel address.
Hey, yeah. I mean, get it how you live it. I'm just saying, they got all the good apps there too. You just have to have a Canadian address. And I didn't have one. So, hey, I mean, you can get some action if you need it. All right, guys, that is going to be it from us at Bully the Board. I'm Seth. This is Steve. Shout out to Kevin, who couldn't be here this week, but we really missed him. And again, if you guys could please like, subscribe, it tremendously helps us. And we would be so grateful to you all. Let us know in the comments, who are you guys betting this week? Super intrigued to see where you guys perceive value. If you're fading the model, if you're tailing the model, we would love to learn. So let us know in the comments. All right. With that, we will see you next week, and good luck. We will see you soon. Take care.